Hello and welcome to the fourth installment of the ARCHLine.XP online architectural courses. My name is Untitled, the partner manager for ARCHLine.XP and also a CAD and modeling enthusiast, so I can't wait to keep on showing you what ARCHLine has to offer. So my strategy is that I'm not only going to show you how to do certain things in ARCHLine, but I'm trying to teach you as well how to be efficient with your time and how to be getting the desired outcome in the shortest amount of time. Last time we looked at how to create sections and elevations, how to get some kind of graphical data out of your model. And today is all about putting that documentation into perspective, into a plot layout, because these things are actually the things that they are going to pay us for. So you need to know how to get accurate and efficient documentation out of your models. As always, I'm happy to receive the questions. Actually, last time I was advised that maybe I should crank up the size of my mouse cursor, so I just did that. Let me know if that's more visible to you. And also, if you have any questions during the show, I'm going to answer them at the end. Don't forget that what we are working towards is this, so we are going to conclude the course in a few days with a stunning visual. That's what we are working towards. And also, if you want to follow along, you can download the files that I have been using during the show, and you can download them from the video description. So now let's jump right in and see what we have over here. Oh, by the way, I just forgot to mention, as always, I have a tiny surprise for you at the end, so be sure to stick around. So last time we created the building model, this two-story family house, part of a larger terraced building. We created the floor plans, dimensions, room and area stamps, annotations, and sections elevations are created. Just a very quick reminder, these are sections and elevations which are in connection with your model. So, you know, if you select something on your model, it's going to be also selected in the 2D and 3D. But now's the time when we have to unlink them. And let's just first investigate why would we want to unlink the drawings from your model. Well, there are several reasons for that, but mainly the most important reason is that you would use these drawings for documentation, for dimensioning. So let's just go back to the model and see what we have here. So like I said, if I select this drawing, then it's going to be in connection with the original one. If I select its properties, the roof properties come up, proving that this is actually in connection. But now I'm going to tear it off from the model, separate it. And the way I do it, I highlight the whole drawing and I hit Ctrl+C. And I pick a point with which I'm going to paste it into another drawing. So I'm just clicking it here, and now I'm ready to paste it somewhere else. Let's go to the two-dimensional floor plan. Because if you want to paste something like this, to turn it into a line drawing, you need to be in a two-dimensional environment. But I'm not going to put it next to my floor plan because this part is really about collecting your floor plans. That's not for collecting two-dimensional plans. So if you want to open up a new set of drawings for this kind of purposes, then you should go to View, Add 2D Drawing, and a new drawing would appear. And this I'm going to name it as Section Unlinked. Okay. And now with Ctrl+V, I can paste the drawing. Okay, here's the great thing about using this method. You have access to the floor structure, just like in here. So if you push the page up, page down keys, you can have multiple sort of pages for the whole document. So you can have multiple sections and elevations piled up on top of each other. But what happened here? If I highlight any element, I see that these are not building elements anymore. These are lines, these are hatches, these are polylines. And there's a good reason for that. So if you want to make any kind of changes or detailing on your drawing, this is where you would do that. So detailing and annotations are not to be done on the dynamic section. Instead, you would do them on the two-dimensional copies. For example, I don't need this annotation line, so I'm just going to highlight the whole thing, hit delete. If I have anything I do not need, let's say I want to delete this line of the door, then I can just do that. I'm just going to undo that, but that just illustrates what I wanted to show. So this is now just a bunch of lines. If you're looking for a two-dimensional group, then that is how you get that. Now, what happens if I want to have annotations and dimensions on the elevations? I can do that, but first let me just go to my favorite tool over here, which is going to organize the layout just like that. That's much better. So I want to measure up the elevation. Okay, why don't we do that in the dynamic section? Well, the reason why we don't do that is because the dynamic section is still a 3D drawing, so the software would not know what to dimension in space. I'm sure that you're getting what I'm saying. So let's go to dimension and go elevation on section, which works as follows. You have to first pick the point which is going to be your 0 point. That I think the top of this slab is going to be 0, and then click on the element that you want to dimension, let's say this point, and then I have to offset the dimension line. Let's say it should be somewhere here. So now it's 0. Okay, let's proceed. If I click on now the bottom of the next slab above me, that's actually my ceiling, then the next dimension line is going to be created, and the next one, and the next one. So that way you can measure up the whole building. Now what happens if there's an annotation which is too close to the other? The software is not going to place it by itself. It allows you to offset it a bit, just like that. So now let's proceed. Let's measure up to the top of the building. So there you go. That's how you can dimension up the elevation of your drawing. You can have much more than that, and the point is that you don't have to have edges on the side. You can click anywhere you want. Next thing I want to do, I want to make horizontal dimensions, which I do here. Serial in horizontal. Here's what I do. I select one point I want to measure from. Let's say I want to measure the wall thickness, right? So I'm just going to click here and click on the other side of the wall, and then I offset the measurement just like that. And then I keep on clicking. In here, wall thickness is here. Again, there's not enough space to fit, so I'm just going to offset that. And here, and I don't need to track this part. I can even click up here if I want, or I can do it diagonally. The dimension is not going to be harassed by that. It's just going to be much more easier for me to do that. So let me just do it like this. So that's how you can create a bunch of very quick dimensions. And that way your elevation drawing copy would be very easily measured up. So it's important, if you want to do this, and if you want to do annotations and further dimensioning, you have to unlink your elevation. Now let's go to something more numerical, which is about getting the calculations out of your floor plan. Because it's one thing to have a model, but it's another to actually have data out of it. We briefly touched upon this when we talked about the room and area stamps over here. So the software is able to tell you numerical values, so let's use that to our advantage. And for that, there's a very good tool, which is called schedules. Now, if I go to documentation, I see schedules. Now, what are schedules anyway? Schedules are actually table texts, which are in direct connection with your drawing, which means that if something changes on your model, then the changes will be tracked by this table text. But let me show you how that works. Click on the drop-down menu and click Placing Schedule. Now, I think a good scenario would be is to have a collection of the doors of my model. So I'm just going to click the discipline Architectural Elements, and it's going to be a door schedule. And here I can define what kind of data I want to indicate in my schedule. I think this is good. The IDs I do not need. Floors needed. Name, width, height. That's right. That's all good. So let's just hit OK. And here I can define how my schedule looks like, if I want to have a header or footer, if I want to collect the identical elements. Hit OK for now and place down this table. Now here's what happens. The table is collecting all my doors based on the floors where they are located. So I see that on the ground floor I have this many doors. These are all identical. On the first floor I have 2 of the same size. The thing is that this table is in connection with my model. If I select it, I see tiny magnifying glasses. These magnifying glasses are helpful to track back to the original copies of this element. For example, I don't know where this particular door is. I just hit the magnifying glass and the software tells me that that's the one in question. I want to find another one, maybe this one. That's the door I'm looking for. Okay, what happens if I want to select a door which is not on this floor, it's on the first floor. So if I click on the magnifying glass, then the software forces the first floor to appear and the correct door would be selected. Let's just push page down to move back to the ground floor, select the table text or the schedule, and see that some numbers are actually editable. Which means that if I want to update the size of this glass sliding door, from 1600 millimeters, I can just click in here and update it to 1200. And if I do that, here the number is changed, but the original model is changed as well. So if I have this decreased to another size, then the table text would be updated. Let's see how it works the other way. I want to change it back to 1600. If I do that, the table text should be updated. Yeah, I think the other way it's not. That's not the way it's supposed to work. I was mistaken. Excuse me for that. Okay, about the schedules. These are dynamic text, as I said. If I click on it, I can see that there are editable things. But if you want to save it into an offline copy, let's say an Excel list, then you can do it from the context menu and you can save it into an Excel. Now, the downside of the Excel list is that it's not going to be in connection with your model anymore. So if you make changes in here, that's not going to influence your file. But again, this is a solution if you might need it. But let's just stay with the topic of the Excel list, because that is what the quantity takeoff is for. Since ARCHLine.XP is a BIM software, it's able to collect the architectural elements along with their data. And let me show you how that works. If I go to Excel list and click building calculations, then all the elements could be, with a push of a button, compiled into one single Excel list. I'm just going to save it into a consignation.xlsx file. And here I have all the elements. I have a wall list, for example. I see all the walls in my project with all the properties. I have the wall layers, the slab layers, roof elements, and such. But that's just maybe too much data, so let's just focus on something which is a bit more easy to handle. And that could be a list of rooms, for example. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rooms all together. So I'm just going to go to quantity takeoff again, Excel list, and this time I'm going to go for a room list. And the room is going to be collected by the number of rooms, obviously. But before that happens, the software is checking if anything has changed with my room and areas, and it's going to regenerate the spaces. It just takes a second. And then after that, I'm going to save it into an Excel list. And the result is here. So I see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rooms all together. And I have the rooms one by one in a combined list. So that is actually how you get data out of your design with a very simple Excel output. Most computers have abilities to actually edit the Excel file, so I think that shouldn't be a problem. Now, let's keep on going with this, because now I think we have the floor plans, sections, elevations, schedules even. I think it's time to actually put together a printout, a plot layout if you like. And for that we have a certain tool which is under documentation plot layout. Now's the time to collect the data and print it out. So if I click on prepare plot layout, I have a choice between the different paper sizes. I'm just going to go with a standard A3, and it's going to be a landscape. Now you may or may not need to put in a plot stamp. I'm not going to use one now, but we have a library of different plot stamps if you want. You can use them, which could be automatically or manually filled out with the relevant data. But I'm not going to need that now, so I'm just going to hit OK. Okay, seemingly what happened is now I have an empty paper. But this is actually much more than that. This is a collection of drawings. Let me show you how that works. For example, if I want to have a floor plan in here, then I'm just going to grab onto the floor plan, drag it onto my drawing, release it, and now the software tells me that now is the time to scale down what I have created, because up until to this point I was working in 1:1 scale, but this is the first time during my work when I have to scale anything down, and that's what I'm doing. I'm going to scale this floor plan now to 1:100 and put it down. Okay, here's one problem. The drawing has carried over some unnecessary things. This schedule, I do not need it at this point. It's important, I don't want to delete it, but I do not need it for printout purposes. So I have to click on the drawing, and I see the boundaries appearing. And this boundary, let's think about this as a window through which I can see the original content. So if I go back here, and if I decrease the size of the window, then I'm just going to see that much less, while the original data is not going to be changed. What happens if, something changes in your drawing? Maybe I do not like this ground floor text over here, so I'm just going to go back to my floor plan and move it somewhere else. I don't think that looks too good, so I'm just going to put it here. Okay, but now my plot layout is not in sync with the original data, so I just have to click on the plot layout, right click, and I have to say refresh this, and if I do that, the text is going to move to its appropriate place. But this works with all kinds of changes. The software is not going to update the plot layouts or the views by itself, because that might take too much time. If you keep on changing things, you can do it at will on demand. Now let's have another drawing element in here, and that is going to be my unlinked two-dimensional copy with the, let me just find where it is. That's the one. That's a section unlinked, and don't forget that I have created this as a floor plan, so I'm just going to drag in the ground floor named drawing, and this is going to be in a 1:50 scale. Oh, that's too much. I'm sorry about that. That should be smaller than that. 1:200 I think would be fine, so I'm just going to put it here. In fact, let's just do it in 1:200. I think that's yeah, there you go. Looks much better. So now I have again another drawing. So this is one of the drawings I have complied from here, and this is the floor plan. What happens if I don't want to have the whole drawing but only one part of the drawing? For that we have a dedicated tool, and that is under the plot layout menu, which is called copy part to plot layout. It tells you how it works, and then I just have to select the part I'm interested in. Let's say this part would be the one I want to copy onto the layout, just like this. Let's define an insertion point over here. Let's go back to the layout and going to plot layout, paste to plot layout, and I'm just going to define a scale which would be 1:50, and here we go. So again, this is in connection with the drawing, and if I don't like this boundary, maybe I want to increase it, I can do that just fine, so that's not a problem, or I can decrease it. This is not going to have any negative effect on the original content. Okay, things are getting together pretty fine, so I'm just going to print this out. Obviously, this is nowhere near as complicated as the layout what one of my colleagues complied, but this might take a bit longer to achieve, and moreover, I would have several additional houses next to ours, but this is the sort of result we are looking for. So let's go back to the software and click on Print to PDF. Now, here's what happens once the dialog loads. I have to comply how I want to print this drawing. First of all, I have to make sure that I don't have a physical printer over here, so I have to go with PDF printing, and I have to define the file's destination, which would be webinar layout 1. Okay. Then I have to define on the paper scale or the paper size. Remember, we started with A3, so that's what we are going for now as well. And the orientation should be landscape. And here's the problem. The drawing is amazingly small. Now, why is that? That is because I have already scaled down the content when I have copy-pasted it onto the layout. It was 1:200. And now I'm scaling it down again to 1:200 again. So that's 1 to 10,000, I think, if my math is correct. So that's way too small. So this time I have to go with a 1:1 scale. And if I don't like the outlook, then I just have to click center the plot. And I think all the other settings are fine, so I'm just going to hit print. And what happens now is the software is now pushing the data into a PDF file, and if you have a PDF reader installed on your computer, then the result should look like this. So that is actually how you get together a printout. But usually, and I don't need to tell you that, more often than not, your project contains more than one pages. So how do you create a multi-page PDF? How to create a print job or print queue? Now, let's go back to the software and talk about that for a second. I'm just going to close this down. For printouts, the first thing you have to do, you have to have several pages of plot layouts. And that's what we have to do first, because here's what I want. Page 1 should be this. Page 2 should be my elevation. And here's what I do. I go back to the drawing, and I click plot layout, prepare plot layout. And this time it's going to be an A4 sheet. Landscape, no plot stamp. Hit OK. Now the software tells me, where do you want this next layout to be positioned? Do you want it as an additional page here, or do you want it as a completely separate entity in my navigator? Both have their advantages and disadvantages depending on what you need. This time I'm going to hit no, because I want to have this page appearing next to our existing one. And as a next task, I'm going to copy paste the west elevation, but the way I see it, the west elevation is not shaded, so I'm just going to regenerate it real quick, because that's the look I'm looking for. Let's just wait for a second. We have learned this before I'm not going to talk about this in detail. So the west elevation is going to be dragged and placed onto this drawing in a 1:200 scale, just like that. And now my task is to make a 2-page PDF. First page is this one, second page is that one. So that's what I'm going to do with File, Print to PDF. I'm sorry, Print Queue. It's just below it. It's the force of habit. So here I have a list of jobs waiting to be happening. So first I have to click the plus icon and make the first page. Here's what happens. The software tells me, okay, first pick the layout from which you want to print. I only have one, so I'm just going to click on this, the A1 sheet. The software tells me now that all the content of the A1 sheet is not going to fit into one single page, so I have to do something with that. So that's the first thing I have to amend. The first time when the layout is complied, we are going to see something this. So that's nowhere near good. So first we have to click PDF printing, and the paper size, the first page, if you remember, is going to be A3. But I don't like this, because if I say I only want to print this one, then I have to go with View, and now I have to define the area that I want to print, like this. Okay, now this part is going to be added to my plot. Scale factor should be 1:1, and again, center the plot. There we go. That's page 1. By the way, I have to define the path. I haven't done that. I don't want to overwrite my previous work, so I'm just going to say layout print Q. Okay. And apply. So that's page number 1. Page number 2, I click on the plus icon, select the same layout, hit OK. This is the same thing over and over again. I'm just going to show you in detail how that's done. Just a second. So I'm just going to go PDF printing. Path is good. The page size should be ISO A4, and the view should be, now it's the other page, that one. So I'm just going to zoom in, click. There we go. And don't forget that this still hasn't taken care of the scale, so I have to do that like this. Center the plot, and I think we are all good. Yes, it looks good, so hit apply. And now I have the 2 pages, so I'm ready to go. Obviously I could have additional pages, but that would just be rinse and repeat, so I'm just going to hit print. And in a couple of seconds my PDF is going to load up, which is going to have 2 pages altogether. On the first one I would have the floor plan, I think one of my sections if I remember well, and the room detail. And on the other page I would have, so here I have the floor plan, dimensions, sections, annotations, perfect. And page 2 I have the shaded elevation. If you have multiple text here, now that's an interesting story. Let's just go back to the layout and talk about what it can and what it cannot or should not do. What it does is that it creates a collection of drawings that you have created. If you want to have annotations, explanation, revision clouds, anything, then you don't do them here. You do them on the original content and then you update the layout. So if you have anything what you want to add, detailed drawings, DWG, imports, groups, 2D lines, anything, then you do that in the original source. There's one extra thing we haven't touched upon regarding printing, and that is how to print out the 3D. Because we haven't talked about the 3D perspective that much, and I think this would be the time to do that. If I go back to the software, I see that I have a very nice 3D visual over here. If yours doesn't look like this, then maybe you are in an axonometric view, like that, which we have talked about how to create. And if you want to turn it back into a perspective, you just click on this eye icon, and here you can define where you're looking at the model from. So let me just put it to large screen, zoom a little bit in, and define how I want this drawing to look like on my printout. Maybe it should be something like this. I think this will be fine. Part of the slab will be missing, but the thing in focus is there. So what I do, I click print to PDF. So there's no need to scale at the moment. So I'm just going to go straight for print to PDF. And the software tells me, okay, what do you want to do? Print to PDF. File location should be webinar print 3D. And the paper size should be, I think an A4 would be enough. Landscape. and I'm going to scale to fit. So I think this is just good enough. I'm going to hit OK. And in a couple of seconds, the software is going to load up the model. So that way you can have the printout of the 3D model as well. Don't forget that this is not a rendered image, because that's what we are going to look at next time. We are going to investigate how to make a rendered actual visual out of this model. This is just a very easy texture view. But that reminds me of something I haven't talked about, but maybe I should have during the first session, and that is how you want to show your textures. And let me go back to the software for a second. This is a revision, something going back to an earlier stage of my design process. But if I click on this button over here in the navbar, I have certain representation styles. So if you want to have like a paper cut model, or maybe if you want to have a wireframe one, or you want to have another like X-ray but also textured vision, then that's how you can do that. So that's very important. I haven't touched upon before, but nevertheless, this is something what I wanted to discuss anyway. Okay, I see the questions are coming in about the printing process. And one of the questions is, how about the title on every PDF print? How do we insert one? There are actually two ways. One way is that you can name your drawings. If you go to the settings, you can set that up. I can't remember right now where that actually is. But when you insert your drawings, then let me just close this for a second. Then what you would do is that that the names of the drawings would appear like that. If, however, you want to name your drawings, then I suggest you create title boxes. Title boxes are actually the things I have showed you before when you create the plot layout. Let me just create another one, so like this. So if you create the text in actual real world size, then you can just drag and drop that text field also into your drawing. So it's very important to differentiate that if you want to have a text in here, which is going to be in a proper size when it's scaled down, you have to create it in a one-to-one style. Let's just do like that. So I'm just going to create another bubble over here. What would be the best way to do it? I think if I go to drafting text. Okay, if I want to create a text over here, that would be, this is our first layout. Put it over here. Now, this text has a size of 200 millimeters, and that is the real world value. So if I crank it up to 500 millimeters, then this would be pretty big compared to a size. But you need to scale it down when you enter it into a layout. So when you are dropping and dragging this drawing onto your layout, then this will be scaled down as well. So the text and all kinds of annotations, like I said, should be here. I hope that's an answer to questions. Next question: how to print in one sheet different views, sections, and details in different scales? I think that's what we did right here, but in case you want to see it again, I can show you that again. So regarding views, I think you maybe meant elevation views or perspectives. I'm not quite sure, but the second part of the question about how to do that in different scales, then that's what we are doing right now. So I'm just going to get rid of this data over here, and I'm just going to do it again. Just grab the thing what you need, and when you drag and drop it, you can define on the scale. It's going to be 1 to 100 for now. So that's how you do it. So every time you drop something in, you can define the scale, and I think you can even do that. It's going to be too large. You can drag and drop the perspective as well, but this time you would need to scale it down. So make sure you do that. So if you drag and drop any kind of image onto your layout, you need to scale that down too. So you can, in fact, save the views here as well. What I usually do, I go to the perspective, I go to documentation. Just a second, I have to find where that actually is, because there's a okay, there's the scenario when the search bar is good, because you can just create a snapshot and snapshot of the 3D view, which is going to save this into a JPEG image, and that way you have an image what you can either save to your computer or insert to the layout. I like to save the images first and then put them onto the layout, because maybe I need them later on. Another question: in each of the different views, how to zoom extend that view into that area instead of having to adjust the size of the views? Oh, yeah. Before, another question: how to insert your personal logo to the layout. With the personal logo, I think the title box is the best way to do. I have a different course on the title boxes, which later on we are going to touch upon. So I'm going to show you how to create a title box with text and images as well. Now back to the zoom to extent question. I think if that question is about scaling to fit, maybe something you want to scale to fit to your screen, you just double click on the mouse button. Oh, not in perspective obviously, but if you are in axonometry and you are zoomed out like this, then double click pushes the content back. Another question: how do we include walls on area calculation for room and area? I think with the Excel list there is a scenario for that too, for the wall areas, but this is something what I have to go back on and check. Another question: if you alter the door width on the model and update the schedule, will not change the width value or in the schedule? Yes, it should be. It should be. Another question, what you have to, another thing regarding that, what you have to be careful about, or maybe you just want to know how that works. If you go to a door or window and you want to change its size to 1200, then how does the software know which side to decrease? That's basically governed by how you position this door. So if this was the value that you have added first, that the door should be 1898 from the corner, then that corner is going to be left as it is. So if you go back to the schedule and change something and the model updates, then the door size will be decreased, but this point would be anchored. And there are quite a few questions over here, and I'm very, very proud of that, because that means that this topic is on spot. So just give me 1 second to review them. Oh, there's a long one about the how do you update the dimensions altogether. We like bigger, smaller font height, other type of arrowhead. Okay, that's important to know. But let me circle back for a second. Dimensions. I talked about yesterday that you can go to the properties and update how the dimensions look like. So if you want to define the arrowheads at the end, or if you want to change the font and things like that, then that's how you can do that. So that's how you can define things. I think dimensions also have styles. So if you have a different styles, then you can set that up, and that way you can change how their dimensions look like. I'm using the local standard over here, but if you have another standard in your country, then that is the way to go. Okay, let's see another one. If for some reason we would like to change to see the previous beginning stages of a project, even though we have moved on the project and we have saved our work many times, not the same name. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Maybe let me tell you how I do it. What I do is that generally I do not trust the power company. So the computer could go offline anytime, especially nowadays. Sometimes you lose power. So what I do is that I make saves all the time, and I hit the save button like crazy, but sometimes I make additional copies of the project. For example, when I made the first floor of this project, then I made another copy, and let me just illustrate how the webinar files look like for this course. These are all the stages I have. So for example, the 001, so 1 was floor 1, I think, created. The number 2s were for the doors and windows. Number 3s were, I think, the second floor. So I'm having different versions being saved into different files all the time. Adding the date would be helpful as well. So make sure you do that. Make sure you log your files, because that way you can log the changes. And I think this will be the time to talk about one of the new features of ARCHLine, which I'm not going to show now, but it's important to talk about, and that is saving into the Google Drive. But I'm not sure where you find it, but that's one of the new features of ARCHLine. File, tools, download from Google Drive. Okay, let's go that. File, tools, and here's the Google Drive integration. There are two ways why this could help you. One is that you can upload your projects to the cloud. The other one is that the Google Drive is going to log how many files you have there and when these files were created. So that way it logs the archives, so you can reach back to another stage of your project. I hope this new development will be helpful for you. Let's see another question. Let's say we have a 2-floor project, ground, 1 floor and roof. Is it permissible to have 1 floor as foundation and another as roof only for the elements of foundation and roof respectively? Well, let's say that this is a question of how you want to approach this. Now, the question is about, I think, the floor structure. So the way I like to work with ARCHLine is that I have several floors created for the things I want to position. Let me just show you what I mean. On the ground floor, I have all the walls and all the elements of the ground floor, and I have the first floor. Now, do I need to create an extra floor just for the roof? Well, it depends what you want to do. For better navigation, I like to do that. You could obviously create the roof on the same floor as the first floor, but if you want to be quickly able to toggle between the elements, then this is how you do it. So I think a good practice for this would be to create floors for the elements which are horizontally not on the same or vertically not on the same level. Also, you know that the program comes with a floor structure with bottom elevations and heights, so that way you can layer up your drawing. Just like when you use two-dimensional layers, these are very good to sort of click on the things what you actually want to create. You could obviously pour all these things into one simple level, but then navigation would be much difficult. So I think this would be the best way to do it. Okay, another question. Is there no way to add text into the PDF files directly without that being in the model space? I think that is doable, but if you do that, and that is why I don't like to do this, because if I go to the layouts and I go to drafting and I hit text and I place the text, layout like this, it's going to be huge, right? So you need to scale it down. So you can do it obviously, but then you have to click back and say how many millimeters should that be? 5 maybe? See, so you can do it obviously. I do not like to do it. I like to keep the layout strictly for the collection of things and not to create additional things. I mean, obviously, if you want, you can draw lines on top of the layouts, but that's not really good practice because who would know what the scale would be? So in short, and that is the question, that is the answer for the layout titles, you can do it. But I like to create things in the model space. But that's just my way of doing. In CAD, there's no right and wrong way. There are just efficient and not too efficient things. Just use whichever is better for you. Another question. There are many questions, and I'm very happy about that. That means that this topic is on spot, and I did not ever believe that this would be the topic provoking so many questions. Question: you now have 5 views on the left. Let's say you close 2 of the views. Now you have 4 views. How can you extend all the other 3 views to fill the whole area in the left proportionately? Excellent question, because I have not touched upon this. So how do you manage your views? Or let's circle back. What happens if you close down one of the views? Let's say I want to close down the CC section, this one, I close down. Oh, where did it go? It's not here. So if I close down this one as well, and I'm closing that one too, I have now 3 drawings altogether. But what happened with the other ones? They are down here under the hidden views. So you can restore them by clicking on the hidden views, and there you can find the unlinked parts. So it's very important to know, once you have closed down the drawings, they are not gone, they are just going to go into hiding, so you can find them over here. Second part of the question: how can you extend all the other 3 views to fill the whole area on the left proportionately? There's a switch for that. So the manual way obviously is to select your drawing and decrease the size of the window, and increase the sizes manually. But there is actually a switch for that. I'm trying to find, it's under user interface if I know correctly, and there should be a toggle for the proportion. Here you go. Set active view size in percentage, and I'm just going to crank it up to 50. So if I do that, then the sizes would be distributed the way you need them to be. So it's always left hand side and right hand side, and this division between them is going to be proportionately distributed. I'm just going to go back to graphics and change it back to 75, because I like to have it was 70, yes. I like to have one space in focus and the other ones are not in close focus. I hope that was an answer to Arthur's question. James is asking, can you lock down several viewports to avoid changing info in them but change others to show variations of design? I think that is what the layers would be good for. Very good that you asked that, because I haven't talked about one major thing, layers. How do they work in the printout? If you go to the plot layout, this one is, I'm not going to refresh that. You can, just let me see that, you can access the layers in your drawing from the layout. So that would be the way to lock down things and block them from printing, for example, or turn on and off the visibility. So one important thing, and that is one of the tricks that I picked up along the way, when we talk about layers, we not only have layers in the 2D, in the 3D, but also on the layouts. So that's very important. Use the layers to manage what you want to hide, what you want to enable. And that is actually what we wanted to discuss now. Let's talk about what happens next. Tomorrow, which is Friday, we are going to talk about something more artistic. Materials, textures, bump mapping, renders, walkthroughs, and all kinds of things which would make a visual like that one you see on the screen. So that is what we are ultimately going for. That is being created with the integrated rendering engine of ARCHLine.XP, and I'm going to show you the tips and tricks of how to work with it efficiently and in a fast way. For now, I would like to thank you for your questions and your attendance. These questions are really keeping this content very relevant, and I'm proud to say that I think I managed to answer most of them. If I haven't, please write me, and I will start tomorrow's sessions with the questions I have left. And we meet tomorrow again. Which will be the fifth and penultimate part of the course, which will be about rendering, and the one on Monday would be about using ARCHLine.XP Live. And that takes us to the surprise what I promised for you. I asked one of my colleagues to create an ARCHLine.XP walkthrough of the project that we are working on, and she has a very short sneak peek, so I'm just going to show you what is waiting for you at the end of this webinar series. So enjoy and see you tomorrow.